We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling on this momentous week in the history of this industry, one of the biggest that I can ever recall, probably the biggest that I can ever recall as far as last night's wrestling was. That was a night. That was quite an interesting night. We got Brian Alvarez, Figure 4 Weekly, here for the next 2 hours. We're going to be taking your phone calls and your zillions of emails. And that'll be the show today because I'm sure that we're going to have no shortage of questions, and we're going to do our best, talk to people at both sides last night, kind of have a good idea of what's going down. Most of what's going down is undecided. I mean, one thing last night, I guess the key is that they did not announce anything for television at the end of Nitro, which they had wanted to do. And the reason is because it's not finalized. The time slot's finalized, as we talked about on the show yesterday, 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. on Saturday night, which is not a good time slot. It's not death, because if you have a good enough show, people will find it. But if you do not have a good enough show and it's a marginal show, it's a bad time slot. The start date is 6 to 8 weeks away, but there's not a definite as to exactly when, and that's why it wasn't said. And probably also because at this point, you know, if it's like to say 6 to 8 weeks away is so, you know, it's so ambiguous that it's like, why even bother? Brian.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of everything?
Where should we start? The big angle?
Yeah, we'll start with the big angle.
Well, basically they built up all of Nitro, and the storyline was that Vince McMahon had purchased WCW, and in fact, Nitro opened up with Vince McMahon, of all people, cutting a promo backstage from Raw, and they had the satellite there, so they were pretty much cutting back and forth to the Raw show throughout Nitro, and the promise was that at the end of the show, Vince McMahon was going to, I guess, address the troops, all the wrestlers and the announcers and the fans and everything like that, and they did the Ric Flair versus Sting match for the final Nitro match ever, which was kind of sad to see because, A, it was like the last Turner Nitro match ever, and I guess it wasn't even really a Turner match because Vince owned it, and the other thing was it's just so sad seeing those guys out there because I told you I was watching those Wrestling Observer Matches of the Year tapes, and Flair was so great. And, I mean, for a guy that is, 52 years old now, just turned 52, hasn't wrestled in God knows how long except for that Greed show, wrestling a guy that is an actor and also hasn't wrestled in God knows how long, it was a decent match. But
it was decent.
Yeah. So anyway, right after that, they cut right away to Raw, and Vince McMahon walked down to the ring and cut his long promo talking about how he owned WCW, he owned WWF, he basically owned everybody, and he had the fans. Actually, this was really interesting because he had the fans vote on which performers he should keep. And I think that they were kind of expecting the fans to boo certain individuals like Buff Bagwell, and perhaps unfortunately they did not. They cheered Bagwell's name. They did boo Hogan. They cheered Goldberg, even chanted his name, and that was pretty interesting. But ended up with Shane McMahon appearing in the WCW ring in Panama City Beach and announcing that he had purchased WCW from under the nose of Vince McMahon. So leads to their WrestleMania match, and I guess Shane's the guy in charge, and they claim they're going to keep it separate, so I guess we'll see.
Well, they're going to have to keep it separate for a while as far as television goes because they're going to have two separate television shows. Last night, after the shows were over, I went back through old Observers and started looking at 1987, which was when Jim Crockett bought Bill Watts' Mid-South Territory, and the plans that they had when they started. It's exactly the same. Now, I'm not saying the end result will be the same. Hopefully, in fact, I will go so far as to say, hopefully, they will go back, and especially because Jim Ross lived through it, and Jim Ross is a mainstay there, and he will go, okay, this is exactly what our plans were, and this is where it failed. So we will not make these mistakes. The problem is that, well, I mean, I can tell you where it failed. I mean, we talked about it on the show yesterday. I mean, it failed because but it's going to be really tricky because they are going to send wrestlers. There's going to be two crews of wrestlers. There's going to be the Raw crew and we'll call them the Nitro crew, although I don't know if they're going to use the name Nitro or not, but we'll just, for the purpose of this, say the Nitro crew. Nobody from the Nitro crew, as the plans are right now, will ever appear on Raw. Now, eventually they will down the road, months down the road, but for now.
Yeah.
There will be people from the Raw crew that will appear on Nitro. The problem is that who those people are, if they are portrayed as bigger stars than the people on the Nitro crew, and it's going to be very difficult for them not to be because the star power of the Nitro crew is not that good.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at who they have, I mean, and they don't have Booker T yet, although everyone pretty much assumes that that's the one that they'll get. I mean, they got Booker T, and there is no other guy that would be considered a big star except for perhaps Ric Flair. And I don't know where Ric Flair stands right now, but I know that they want Ric Flair. That is better than 50-50 at this moment of going there. Sting is certainly leaning towards sitting out. Bill Goldberg has told people he's sitting out. Kevin Nash has told people he's sitting out. Scott Steiner, again, it's up in the air. What?
He wants
the job, and they may take him, and they may not take him. I don't know what they're going to do with Scott Steiner. He's got star power. That one.
He was another name that got a huge pop.
Scott Steiner's name got the second biggest pop, except for Bill Goldberg's name when Vince McMahon went through that, and that may have helped his cause. At the same time, Scott Steiner, Scott Steiner's got those two incidences of going on live TV and going against the script, and I mean the whole thing that they're trying to get across to the WCW wrestlers is that there's a zero tolerance policy, and that all of these guys who did this are not going to be in the new company, and then when it's almost the same thing of like Scott Steiner did this thing. Remember early in the year when Kevin Sullivan was Booker and Scott Steiner cut the Ric Flair promo that got him suspended, right?
Yeah.
Then Russo comes in and he thinks it's the greatest thing in the world because it wasn't his script they went against, and he starts building up Scott Steiner to win the world title, and it's like, okay, now what does that tell guys? And
I mean, my feeling is a guy like Scott Steiner should at least be given a chance because the things that he did were in an environment where they were encouraged. And, if he's in the WWF and he knows there's the zero tolerance policy, he's not going to do that. And
one thing that he definitely did that was a step in his favor is he did the job clean in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Injured.
So he came there, he did the job, did it professionally. No referee bumps, no crying, no, anything.
Yeah, just did it.
Just went in there, did his job. So that much was good. As far as some of the other guys, again, who knows? But it's like if the guys from the Raw show come to the Nitro show and are bigger stars than the guys in the Nitro show, it will just tell everyone who watches the Nitro show that this is a show you can skip.
I mean, the one thing that I look at as a huge positive, maybe the biggest positive, is that they put Shane McMahon, of all people, as like the figurehead guy in charge of the company. And if it would have been like Jim Ross or Eric Bischoff or anybody else, there wouldn't be the desire to make sure that this thing does not fail. I mean, with Shane there, they don't want Shane to be put in charge of this company that ultimately, dies.
But ultimately, it's still going to die, though.
Yeah.
Because
as long as they can keep this thing,
as long as they keep, you don't want to bury it. Well, no. But they don't want to bury it anyway because it's their own TV ratings.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a real tricky thing. It's so tricky, because if you try to make it, I mean, the one way they can pull this off, but then the problem is you're still talking about sacrificing your primetime time slots on Monday and Thursday to build up your Saturday's time slot, which is a horrible time slot, and that is the idea that Shane, raids talent from the WWF when their, quote, contracts are up, and big name talent. But, then you've got the problems is, well, the WCW crew is not doing house shows, the WCW crew is not doing pay-per-views, so if Shane raids them, and they remain on Raw, and they remain doing house shows, and they remain doing pay-per-views, you've kind of killed your angle. So that's tough, too.
It does depend, though, on how far down the road he starts doing the raids and everything like that, and if at that point they're ready to start doing house shows and pay-per-views.
But to be ready, they're going to have a talent force.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the chicken and the egg.
I mean,
it's like,
like we talked about yesterday, they can do whatever they want. So they can do a deal where they go, look, for the first 3 months, we're going to send a couple of you guys over there, and we're going to pay you for house shows in the WWF that you don't work, just to get this thing going.
Well, that's the thing that they probably need to do.
Yeah.
But then the thing is like, okay, then you're sacrificing the talent depth on the main shows by doing so. because you do have to keep them off the main show, or you've killed your angle. Unless they show up with Shane
but I think
doing
that
a
they've got to
raid
be
thing.
getting to the point right now where they realize that they have the same guys on top. And maybe they haven't realized it yet, but 3 months down the road after WrestleMania and everything's cooled off, maybe they will. That, you know, they got Steve Austin on top still, Rock and Hunter, and maybe it's time to bring somebody else up. And to keep those guys as main eventers without putting them lower on the card, just send them to the other company.
I understand that Shawn Michaels made the suggestion that, like, him and the whole clique should go to WCW and be the star at the WCW show. And, of course, he pitched for Kevin Nash.
Yeah.
Would be. No, I know a lot of the guys also. It's you know, now Nash is saying, Nash actually told some friends of his last night after watching the two shows that he thinks that he may never wrestle in the United States again, just the way this whole thing works out. Whereas, you know, my feeling is that he's going to sit out his 10 months and they're going to beg for him to come back, which will be a big mistake, but I think that's how it's going to work out.
Yeah. Just
because in 10 months this business is going to be so different than now, and they're going to be so desperate for a new star, certainly on one of those two shows or somewhere, unless they've already merged into one and the Raw show is so powerful they don't need it. But I mean, like all of those guys, you know, like the idea of Paige. You know, Paige is in an interesting position right now. I don't know. Do you know how long Paige has left on his deal?
I think it was pretty similar to Nash because they were out there talking about that during that one promo.
Okay, so if it's 10 months left, let's just say, and I think that's pretty close to what it is also. Out at $1.3 million, I think was the number. I don't know that he would go in there for whatever they're going to offer him, which I'm guessing would be $350 or $4. And this is just guessing numbers. I don't know what they're going to offer. And pass up the 1.3 for $350 or $4. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
Even though I know Paige wants to get into it, I know, like, from last night that, you know, Paige was all gung-ho about going there and working with The Rock and all that, what he thought was going to happen. And kind of like the financial reality was kind of explained to him, I guess, last night. And, and they want Paige, and they should, because he's a hardworking guy. But, I mean, sitting there, it becomes a big decision when you're talking about $900,000, more money to sit on the sidelines. And with Paige, what makes it weird, too, is, you sit on the sidelines at the age of, he'll turn, I think, 46 on April the 5th. So basically at the age of 46, boy, it's a tough decision for him to make. I mean, I think a guy without a big ego would say sit on the sidelines for sure, but then there comes that point where even if you have a big ego, it's like, do you pass up that kind of money to soothe your ego? And the fact that maybe 9 months from now, by not being in this game, you may be more valuable to them anyway. Or you may not. It's a crapshoot.
I don't know how it is right now, but I know like a couple of weeks ago, I mean, his feeling was, okay, if I can go in there and work with the top guys, I'll take the pay cut because that's where I want to be. And if not, if you watched his promo last night that he cut, he was basically doing the whole, inspirational deal, and he wants to go into that, just do like touring and inspirational speaking and stuff like that. So I don't think that the wrestling thing is high on his list of priorities if he's not going to be one of the top guys.
Interesting. But it's everyone who's in there is it's a crapshoot. I was very surprised though when Vince McMahon brought up of all the names Bill Goldberg, because he's the least likely that he's going to get because he's got 2.5 years on that giant deal, that Goldberg would be an absolute fool to turn down. Mm-hmm. And it's out there. You know what he did? What was really fascinating to me, because it goes against everything Vince McMahon has ever done, is that you never tease something that aside from the fact, the whole thing, but Vince McMahon, unlike WCW, which one of the big differences, and unlike New Japan, which has done this really bad in the last year as well, they never tease a match that they're not planning to do. I mean, if they tease that someone's coming back, by God, he's coming back. They don't there's none of this Scott Hall stuff, you know what I mean, where you tease this guy coming back for 6 months that you're actually not going to bring back. I mean, everything that's on that TV show is for a reason. I mean, if ECW was never going to exist before, Paul Heyman wouldn't be calling Rhino the last ECW champion. You know what I'm saying? There's a reason that everything is said on Raw. Things aren't said for no reason. Okay, that's redundant. Well, anyway, for him to build up, when you talk about Bill Goldberg, all of a sudden you have this whole wrestling world today going like, we want to see Bill Goldberg against Austin. We want to see Bill Goldberg against The Rock. And that's that almost I would say overwhelms the Mania this Sunday. Although,
It's
the talk
up
of the
there.
Mania. Let me tell you something. The talk of WrestleMania. When I talk to people, that's not what they talk about. They talk about this story because it's much bigger than WrestleMania, and that kind of dilutes the fact that Sunday, we got WrestleMania. It's the biggest show of the year with what should have been the biggest match to main event of WrestleMania. Probably since Hogan and Andre in '87.
Yeah, the one thing last night, though, that I noticed was when he was going over the list of names, it looked like he had no intention whatsoever of mentioning Goldberg's name. And when he got through with his list, the fans started chanting. And it was almost like he could ignore it, but if he ignored it, it's like you're ignoring it in the middle of all these fans chanting this guy's name. So he was kind of stuck.
But by mentioning it, and then Goldberg getting by far the biggest pop and the chants, it's like they've all of a sudden created their own Scott Hall.
Yep.
Because on the WCW shows, okay,
those fans are going to chant
for those fans are going to chant for Goldberg at least for a while until all of a sudden they realize there is no Goldberg, and then they're going to be really disappointed, and they're not in the business of disappointing the fans.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting time in this business. That's all I can say. I mean, and where it's going to go 3 months from now, 9 months from now, 2 years from now, nobody knows. I mean, there's going to be there should be, and again, they could blow it. There should be a big upswing temporarily. How long you could keep it, and then what you do when you get there, I don't know. But you need to have the WCW side needs to raid. I mean, that's what happened when the real WCW side started, making big inroads. With the NWO angle was when they actually raided talent, and to make them competitive, they have to raid talent. But the one thing they did do good is Shane McMahon, and it wasn't even Shane McMahon, it was Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon turned WCW babyface last night.
Mm-hmm. And it was funny because he's like throughout the show burying them, but he at the same time was working so hard to make sure that they were the babyface promotion in this war.
But that's weird too, because you've got this audience of WWF fans. I thought the crowd really had no idea what to do, because for all these years they've been taught to hate WCW, because when you're a WWF fan you hate WCW, and now all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, they're the baby faces and we're the heels, but we're here in Cleveland at their show. It's the weirdest. There's so much weird stuff going on. It's hard to explain. But the greatest thing on that show, better than the Vince and Shane interview, better than anything, was when William Regal came in and said, that place is a bloody disaster. What did he say?
I can't remember the exact term.
Oh, I just cracked up. I've been there. Why would you ever want to buy that?
He tried.
Yeah. Real quick before we go on, the ratings. Raw did a 4.7 rating, which, given all the publicity and everything, I got to think that was a huge disappointment. Nitro did do a 3.0, so Nitro rating went up almost a full point. It's the highest Nitro rating of the year. And the Vince McMahon segment did a 3.5 on TNT. At the same time, it did a 4.4 on TNN. So it was a 7.9 combined for that one segment. Then the second hour of Raw, and this is with a plug from Nitro. Nitro's going off the air with a 3.5 rating, and they do the plug. Coming up is, Steve Austin and what is it, Steve Austin and The Rock against Undertaker and Kane. Like they basically told everyone, switch channels now, you're going to get to see it. And they only did a 5.3 in the second hour and only did a 5.1 for that main event. And
time to move those guys over.
It's time to start juggling. Yep. You're right.
A bloody awful place is what Steve Regal said.
When Regal was over there in, when Regal was in Australia, he just couldn't stop talking about Luger and Bagwell, about how unprofessional they were and everything.
Yeah.
And that there would be no place. That's going to be interesting, because it's like, the fans don't know about what anyone does backstage, except for, maybe, 2% of the fans. They just see what they are on TV. And you know what? It's like, it's just very weird. What can I say? But,
you know what else was really funny last night? Just real quick on those funny lines was when Kurt Angle came out and was talking about WrestleMania, and he said he couldn't believe the Gobbler, or whatever his name was.
Yeah.
And right then I thought, this guy has no idea who the Gobbledygooker is.
And thank God for that. Another thing on that was, You know, that big angle, you know, and Paul Heyman, you know, I mean, that thing had Paul Heyman's fingerprints all over it, you know, the tapping and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when Benoit put him in the crossface and he tapped, which actually I thought was a pretty good angle. And then he just goes like, Kurt Angle in the Olympics, in high school, in college wrestling, never once tapped. And I'm just thinking, like, that's like saying that some basketball player, you know, while he was playing basketball in, like, you know, in like all those years of high school basketball, college basketball, and whatever, you know, never threw an interception and just got intercepted. It's like, what is that?
Never hit a home run.
I know. It's like, I know what he was trying to do, but it's like it didn't. It's like if you actually thought, like it totally didn't work.
Yeah.
But luckily, I don't know. I don't know how many people. I think most people know that in amateur wrestling you would never tap. I think most people know that. Anyway. We will go to a break right now. We're going to come back with more news right after this.
Powered by the IATA Media Group. And a professional lineup that includes entertainment from Lionel. Gossip from the New York Daily News, Rush and Malloy. Lori Kramer and the New York Post's Richard Johnson. Sports from the Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer. And Ultimate Fighting with Eddie Goldman. Fitness with Lizzie Fitt. Johnny Bowden and Buff and Bond. Sex and relationships with Bob Berkowitz. And comedy from Chauncey Hayden, Adam Paul, and Dan and Scott. This is IATA.com.
Talk radio for the Internet.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Buff from IATA.com with an Outdoor Adventure Minute, and I'm going to tell you how to prepare for your first adventure. Okay, you've read all the Outdoor Adventure magazines, you're finally ready to get into some outdoor stuff yourself. What do? Run out and buy a brand new $2,000 sea kayak? Do you book that $65,000 trip to Everest? Of course not. First, find out if you even like whatever activity you want to do by getting a little taste of it. If you want to take up sea kayaking, rent one for a day. It's not terribly expensive, and all the equipment you need will be included. You can also take a lesson. There are guides and instruction for most any outdoors activity that strikes your fancy. Want to learn to climb mountains, rock, or ice? Check out emsclimb.com. Interested in dog sledding? Click on dogsled.com. In fact, the most valuable piece of equipment you may need in getting outside might be your computer. There are websites for every outdoor activity under the sun. And if you don't have a computer, go to the library. Even the smallest libraries have internet access. Libraries also have that old school resource, books. If it's been done, it's been written about. Until next time, I'm Jimmy Buff from IATA.com with your Outdoor Adventure Minute.
Wrestling Observer Live with Dave Meltzer is sponsored in part by the Office of National Drug Control Policy.
Okay, so they call this stuff ecstasy? Interesting. Have you heard about nausea, paranoia? How about the terrible Tuesdays? See, here's the thing about ecstasy. After spending a whole night partying, you can crash, and some serious depression can set in. Suddenly, life without X doesn't seem so great. So you do it again and again and again, and the more you do it, the more you want it. And then you can't figure out how to enjoy life without it. Doesn't sound like ecstasy at all. But hey, the choice is yours. Just don't say I didn't warn you.
Sponsored by ONDCP in partnership for a drug-free America.
Call us toll free 1-877-IATA-99.
If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator.
1-877-IATA-99.
Okay, I want to make mention of course, that Sunday, Brian and myself will be doing right after WrestleMania, midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific, our WrestleMania special here on IATA.com. We'll be running down the show, taking your phone calls, taking your emails, go in depth on all the inside information. So we're going to be here Sunday night, midnight to 1 a.m., right after WrestleMania here on IATA.com. We'll be talking about that throughout the week. Brian, did you get the ratings for the other shows?
No,
besides Raw and Nitro?
No.
Okay, neither did I. We're just looking for the weekend shows here. Poll question, how long do you think it will be, WCW will be kept separate before being absorbed into the WWF? Less than 3 months, 14%. 3 to 6 months, 9%. 6 months to a year, 32%. 1 to 2 years, 29%. More than 2 years, 17%. It's gonna be more than 3 months. I don't think there's any question of that. Boy. I'm guessing 6 months to a year. They may, but if they do it, let's say 9 months, and then start doing interpromotional, they might be able to stretch it out for another year after that. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm going to go out on a limb and predict more than 2 years.
You think it's going to be more than 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
Really? Wow. Yeah.
Maybe just complete wishful thinking on my part, but I do.
Really? I don't think so. I don't think it's going to last that long, but we will see. I also want to make mention that UFC is going to be running the Continental Airlines Arena on June the 29th. So, boy, that's getting into the house show business in a big way. Yeah, they better have a show. Let me tell you, 17,000, 19,000 seats. That will be the biggest show. I mean, let's see. UFC ran the building in Buffalo and did over 10,000 people in the glory days of UFC. And Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn, so this would be in 1996, sold out the Cobo, which was about 10,000 people in Detroit. But this is way bigger of an undertaking than anything that they've tried. I guess they saw those guys went to that Saitama Super Arena, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, Dave, I believe that it's a 17,000 seat arena, if I'm not mistaken. But they could close off part of it if they wanted to, to make it a smaller venue. But it's a big undertaking, I think, if they're gonna try and do the Continental. I mean, it's smart in a way that you have New York. I mean, Manhattan is less than 5 minutes, 10 minutes away, on a normal day. So I guess they're hoping to try and get the big New York crowd in to see the fight.
Well, they've never really run the New York market,
right?
So with the right publicity, it's something it's something new.
It's just interesting that they're doing the show so close to the next, to this May 4th show. I mean, it's 7 weeks.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's, yeah.
And you've got to start promoting it now, obviously, in order to get the people, psyched up to want to come and see it. So it'll be interesting.
Atlantic City's, though, a totally different market than the Meadowlands.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just saying that, I mean, obviously, number one, for the fact that it's a bigger arena. Two, there are a lot of people who don't want to make the 2.5-hour drive from New York City to Atlantic City. This obviously being a closer venue, but it'd be interesting to see. I'd be interested to see how much of the arena they actually have to paper, because I don't think you're going to get 17,000 people who are going to buy tickets to see a UFC, depending on what they do. I mean, that's
Well, especially at this point with no television.
Exactly.
And not even strong pay-per-view. I mean, they really don't. Unless you got a dish, you're not even on pay-per-view in most of that area. I think you get pay-per-view. You get pay-per-view now, right?
No, actually, I have a digital cable service through Comcast, which does carry the UFC, and it is in some of the New Jersey markets. Comcast, I think, is in parts of New Jersey, Philadelphia, Maryland, and Delaware. It runs right along that portion of the East Coast. I don't know how many counties in New Jersey actually have Comcast cable. I know part of North Jersey, where I live in Central Jersey, and there are a number of portions in South Jersey that have Comcast cable. So
all right.
It'll be interesting.
I also want to mention Shawn Michaels will return to WWF television tonight. Actually, he was supposed to return last night, but with all of the stuff that they had going on, if you noticed watching Raw, that was a totally rushed show.
Oh, yeah.
And they just when they had the board that went up at 4 p.m., they had already had Shawn Michaels off the show, so his segment was axed. Whatever he was going to do, and I don't know exactly what it is, but it's to set up, he's going to be at WrestleMania, and the angle that they were going to do last night, they're doing tonight at SmackDown. So, and of course, Mick Foley returned if you did not watch the show, and he's going to referee the Vince against Shane match. Mick Foley lost a lot of weight. I think he's going to wrestle.
I thought that whole angle there was like, I don't know. I don't know if it was so much a letdown, but it was more like I was watching this. It's kind of like a WCW angle, It's like Mick Foley coming back and saying, man, I did all this stuff, before you came back, and trying to just change history and all this stuff, and it was like, okay, great. Especially on this show, where the whole big deal was this WWF, WCW thing, and Mick Foley comes back, and it was like, okay, whatever.
Well, they wanted him at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And they probably should have pulled the trigger on that one a week ago. But, who's to it's like one of those things like last week before WrestleMania. I mean, who's to know when they make this decision on this week we're going to do this week we're going to do this. We're going to save, and then the decision was, because they were going to bring Michaels and Foley in, and it was kind of like, well, let's do it next week. Well, let's do it next week. Well, all of a sudden next week is the last week we can do it, and we just bought WCW. So it's sort of like the impact of Michaels' return and Foley's return was really minimized. Although Foley got it, he was going to get a big pop, and Michaels will get a big pop too. It's not the big story of the week.
Held off both until SmackDown.
Yeah,
won't have to worry about the show being rushed. Won't have to worry about switching to satellite and everything like that. It's so funny on Raw when Vince comes down and satellite wasn't ready to go yet. Flair was still hugging Sting. So he had to command Lillian Garcia to announce him again, go back up the ramp and come back down.
And then on TNT, the signal was all messed up.
The feed was
7-second
screwed up.
delay.
How about that?
Yeah. It was fine on TNN. WWF production crew. Yeah, Shane was talking to the people of the WCW production crew, and it was like, production does have to get better. And it does.
I figure that was Vince's final act of sabotage. Maybe it's just me.
No, that's just you. There's no way. That was... Boy, what a surreal night, though. I mean, it was weird, even knowing, that Vince was going to be on that show, when they open the show and there's Vince, it's almost like, oh my God, I saw a ghost. I mean, even knowing this, I'll tell you what, it was the same as, and long time fans would remember this, because in wrestling it was kind of termed Black Saturday, which was July 14th, 1984. I may have the date wrong, but I know it was July of 1984. And, it was like that was the night that they took over TBS the first time for their almost 1 year run. And it was one of those things. They'd bought the company 2 months before, and they were in these court fights over who would get control of that time slot. And Vince ended up winning the court fight. And then all of a sudden, Freddie Miller opens the show, and Freddie Miller was like, who would he be like? They don't really have a Freddie Miller right now in wrestling, do they? Hey, because what it was, Gordon Solie was the host, but Freddie Miller would introduce the show. So I mean, kind of like Howard Finkel, but not really. He'd go and ladies and gentlemen, here's Gordon Solie, and they would open Georgia Championship Wrestling, or World Championship Wrestling as it was known by that time. And then all of a sudden, they open the thing up, and it's this studio with no fans and almost no wrestlers, and Freddie Miller is introducing, Vince McMahon and Gorilla Monsoon. And there's no Gordon Solie, and the switchboard went crazy at TBS that night. Let's see. Any other news before we hit some emails? Because we got, as you can imagine, a ton.
I thought that Ric Flair promo last night was so awesome.
Yes, it was. Do you know that, just to bring that up, when I'm watching this promo and I'm writing down my notes, I'm going, if Ric Flair had done promos like this every week, none of this would have ever happened.
Yeah, and if his version of history had really happened, none of this would have ever happened.
Yeah.
Talk about guys going out there and bleeding and all this, like it was an everyday.
It was so weird though when he when he talked about 5 blade jobs.
Oh yeah, and yourself 5 times.
The other one that I thought was
45 minutes.
The other one that I thought was so weird in that promo was when he said that Vince's father was one of the members of the board of directors who voted him to be world champion. I mean, it was like, that was all true. I'm just amazed. That's like something Russo would have someone say.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where if you don't know what he's talking about, you just listen to the delivery and go, wow. You wouldn't really go, what the hell is he talking about? Vince's dad voting,
Yeah.
What a promo, though.
Yeah, that was, and then challenging Sting, and then he did the job again.
Yeah.
To the bitter end. He always puts over Sting. And, I don't know. It was kind of, watching that match, I mean, I'm really glad in hindsight that was the last match of wrestling ever on that station. Although when he said, his best opponent, I'm going oh my God, because they're going to bring Steamboat back. You know what I mean? and actually, that would have been better. I mean, I think, because, realistically, I think when people think of, the great feud, on that station, it's really more Flair Steamboat than Flair Sting. Mm-hmm. Even though Sting was more, Sting was more visible and everything. It's like the Steamboat matches, generally speaking, were of a higher level. So, but either way, I thought it was nice that they went out with that, but at the same time, it was also very sad.
Yeah. I was just looking at it going, man, look at this Flair, this 52-year-old man who hasn't done anything, and he's not bad. If this guy actually trained and started working a regular schedule, he's gonna be 70 and outworking some of these guys.
Yeah, he was fine.
Yeah.
But if he was out there every night, I don't know if his body would like
would.
that.
Mae Young.
Flair's
one of them, I tell you.
Well, he still took those big bumps, and he wasn't even in shape. I mean, it's Ric Flair, just just walk out there. Oh well.
Flair,
that's why he's Ric Flair.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, this is from Andy Patrizio. He goes, I've been fired in front of coworkers before. Yeah. So have I, by the way. But how does Jeff Jarrett feel about being fired on national television? I never liked the guy, but I feel bad for him. I don't know what to make of that. I think he really was fired. Okay. I'm pretty sure, but I don't know for sure. But, no one did. I mean, at the WCW thing, when, people were kind of a lot of the WCW guys were kind of watching, and they watched this promo, and everyone's looking at each other going did Jeff Jarrett get fired? And Jeff Jarrett's, he watched that. He saw that with his very eyes, with a bunch of people. And, he still may have no idea right now. So anyway, that was weird between Jeff Jarrett and Animal. That Animal, his timing of that thing on the WrestlingObserver.com, that interview he did, Joe Laurinaitis, it's up there right now. Oh, boy. Actually, it might be on the archives. What? Oh, that Joe Laurinaitis interview. What timing.
There's a lesson to be learned from last night, and that is that Vince McMahon always gets the last laugh.
Only in wrestling.
Keep trying.
He'll get the last laugh in wrestling. Hogan will get the last laugh in wrestling. Inoki will get the last laugh, because I know how many people, laughed on Inoki's grave 17 times, and he always came back too. But not out of wrestling. Out of wrestling, Vince McMahon often does not get the last laugh.
That's true.
So anyway, let's see. I'm not sure I understand exactly how Shane got WCW. Okay, he snuck in and bought it with his dad's money. Actually, he was supposed to say his dad's money and he forgot to say it, but that's another thing. I thought for sure he was saying, yeah, and he has to pay him back, or else he loses the company, right?
Yep.
In quarterly increments, he's gonna have to have his own WrestleMania. I thought for sure what he was saying was that the contract Vince came out and signed last week for their Mania match was actually the purchase of WCW. Nah, I don't think so. And Vince signed it without reading it. That would have been pretty funny, actually. Yes, Angie. Andy, you should have written that show, because that's better than what they did. I think that would have been hilarious if they had gone in there and said, that contract that you signed, that's actually it's turning WCW over to me, except it just didn't work timing-wise.
Hey,
that doesn't matter. The Mick Foley thing didn't either. What?
They still got tonight.
Yeah. Nice to see Taz win a match, but he should stand next to Jackie when he wins that, not Bradshaw. Ain't that the truth? Best sign in the WWF crowd got King. They missed that one. Best sign in the WCW crowd, Bischoff Subway's hiring. No, it wasn't. The best sign was the one they confiscated right after the first break that said something like, XFL, Vince, XFL, WCW. What the hell are you thinking?
I remember that one. It was except it said WCW XFL Vince, you dumbass.
That's what it was. That's right. That was the one. That sign. I'm going how did that one fit through the cracks? But I'm sure that those guys who came out with that sign were mugged by the police seconds later. Also, did I hear Tony take an open swipe at Steve Regal on the air? Not smart if he did. Yeah, Tony's on the endangered species list.
You know what else worried me right after he made that comment about Regal? He starts talking about, this is WCW, we do cruiserweights better than anybody in the world, and all of a sudden he was bleeped for 5 straight seconds, and I thought, there goes that division.
Because after seeing all those anti-WWF signs in the crowd, I think the idea of WCW rebelling against WWF into 13 colonies or a more modern angle, a Star Wars style, will work big, at least with what's left of that audience. Wasn't it ironic and amusing to hear Vince insulting Panama City when he was in Cleveland? Yeah, I know, really. If you had the choice of those two places to be. Anyway, the Chris Benoit face turn sure came quickly. Yeah, it's the second one in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Remember they did it? They forgot about it, now they did it again.
The thing was, he was doing the thing with Angle, and after it was over, I went, well, they finally did it. They turned this guy babyface. And then about half hour later, he comes out with Hardy's, no reaction.
Well, then they had to rush through that thing, too. Let's see. It's from Michael Young. Let's see. What do you make of Tito Ortiz's appearance before the Sakuraba Silva fight? Is that an indication of possible Pride UFC working relationship down the road? They want to work together. They don't want to be enemies. I don't know more about it yet, but it's too bad. I guess Sakuraba's in real rough shape right now, so he may not be fighting for a long time. For the next Pride in May, what are you hearing more likely? The rumored Sakuraba-Henzo match? Well, that's pretty much dead because Henzo got knocked out and Sakuraba's not going to be fighting for a long time. So I would say that's not going to happen for sure. Or Sakuraba-Silva. I don't think Sakuraba's going to be ready for Silva. I had heard last night from Japan that Sakuraba's not going to fight again for a year. So that's how bad off they think
he is. Just from the beating?
He's been really sick, and I think that they kept it quiet. I don't know. Let's see. What is the most significant wrestling television event of the last 25 years?
I think you just watched it last night.
Yeah, the simulcast. Maybe. Let's see. Debut of Nitro. Scott Hall on Nitro. No way. I mean, don't get me wrong. Scott Hall on Nitro is a big deal, but there have been probably 25 things bigger than that in the last 25 years. WWF broadcast from the Chase. That was a big deal in St. Louis, but not nationally. Clash of the Champions against WrestleMania 4. That was a big deal. WWF takes over Georgia. That was huge at the time, but it only ended up being a one-year story, whereas this one is permanent, so it makes it 10 times bigger. Hulk Hogan debuts on The Clash, no way. Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero's last match in ECW. I mean, that was cool, but No. AAA debuts on Mexican television. Well, that's pretty big because that's like a decade-long story. Yeah, that one's big. Let's see. This is from Mike Rubin, who goes, I understand Sting doesn't care for the current atmosphere of the industry. Was that his last match? We don't know yet. Possibility. Whose idea was it for Sting to go over? Was it Flair's or McMahon's? I bet it was Flair's.
Yeah.
I bet it was just everyone's. So I don't, do you think any WCW talent will be at WrestleMania? If so, who? I don't think they'll be wrestling there. It'd be good if someone showed up. I think someone should show up, just because if they don't, people will be almost let down that they didn't see somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Just have Booker T show up and do something. Yeah, they should.
Just have someone in Shane's corner, another guy.
Should interfere in the match. Except there's going to be some. You know what though? If Linda's rising up from the wheelchair, which to me would be the finish that I would do, because it's been built up, you really don't want somebody else interfering. It just dilutes that.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not the right time. It's from Dave Galvin, who goes, maybe I'm just an old Flair mark, but I can't help but feel he should get an award for that promo he cut. I must admit being very disappointed last night when Vince just up and told everyone at the start that he owned WCW. I always felt the best thing to do would be to run WCW as a separate company and not acknowledge the purchase on television. Run the company, business as usual, and act as though their competition happens to be on the same network. This would give some good heat between the two companies. Then once a year at a pay-per-view, maybe WrestleMania, have the World Series of Pro Wrestling and have crossovers galore. When I was watching the whole thing last night, I was reminded of when Marvel Comics and DC Comics finally put their grudges aside a few years ago and started doing crossover angles between the two of them. There's probably actually something to say about that. At first it was hot. It was what every comic book professional wanted and what fans wanted to read. Once they did the crossovers, it got old real fast. People stopped caring about Spider-Man against Batman. The novelty wore off. Fans wanted to see the crossovers maybe once a year, giving the creators 1 year to plan what they were going to do and make the project a labor of love. While some people may jump on Vince McMahon's ego last night for boasting, I can't help but feel he has a right to do so. Considering he almost lost the war a few years back, to come from behind and win the war in the long run is a fantastic feat. No matter what people might think of the man, he has a right to be gloating and gloating hard. Didn't come across too good, though. There's too much. That was very. It's like it's so hard where the reality ends. Because, and the fantasy begins because they're all one.
Yeah.
With all that said, I do feel the final angle they did last night with Shane buying WCW was a great idea. Yeah, I did too. I thought it was a great angle. This is going to give an instant head start to the continuing feud between Shane and Vince, as well as keep WCW a separate company unto itself. I sure as hell trust Shane to run the company more than I trust Russo. Ain't that the truth?
That's for sure.
Yeah. I was wondering if you could please tell me what you think the chances are of some of these following wrestlers being brought on. Sting, not for a year. And then, who knows, a year from now. Again, who even knows the landscape? DDP, it's up to DDP. And Sting, it's up to Sting, too. But I don't think WWF is that hot for Sting anyway. I think they do want DDP, but it's on their terms, and I don't know if DDP is going to want the pay cut. Booker T, I'm pretty sure is going to wind up there. Scott Steiner, we'll have to see. It could go either way. Goldberg, no. Nash, no. Scott Hall, can't imagine them taking Scott Hall right now. I mean, a year from now, anything can happen. Luger, I cannot imagine. Bagwell, I would still. After last
night, I'm worried, but I still say no.
That's how I would say too. I still say no, but the fans kind of did Bagwell a big favor last night. Anyway, we are going to go head to a break right now. We're going to start with phone calls right after this.
A leader in the collapse of modern family values. This is IATA.com. Dan and Scott.
Loretta Lynn, 65 years old, hospitalized in Nashville for pneumonia.
Really?
I think it's time for her good friend Willie Nelson to call her.
Just a moment, I'll transfer you in.
All right, I appreciate it, little lady. Oh, man.
Hello?
Hello, Loretta.
This is Rosie, her friend.
No, I need to talk to Loretta, please. It's Willie Nelson calling.
But you're not Willie Nelson, the singer.
I am Willie.
Huh?
Hi,
oh, yeah,
Willie.
I believe
You're not Willie Nelson.
It's definitely going to lift your spirits.
You're not Willie Nelson.
It is Willie Nelson, man.
This is Willie Nelson.
Please,
Hello.
just put him on with Loretta Lynn.
Yeah.
Loretta, how are you doing?
How you doing? We just wanted to call and say, get healthy soon.
Okay, honey, I will.
How's the food there?
That good?
Oh, man, that was it.
Hello?
That was Loretta Lynn, man. Holy shit. We didn't think we'd actually get her, for Christ's sake.
That's one of those things where you get her, and then what the f*** are we going to say to her?
We were both tongue-tied, but all of a sudden it was her.
Well, you know what, gentlemen? It took 20 minutes, 14 phone calls, and 2 Willie Nelsons, but we finally did it.
Dan and Scott, 4 to 7 p.m. live, or anytime in the archives.
If you want interviews with wrestling's hottest stars, behind-the-scenes news, and the most complete wrestling package on the World Wide Web, then you want The Law.
www.liveaudiowrestling.com.
No holds barred wrestling radio with Jeff Merrick and Dan the Mouth Lavransky.
www.liveaudiowrestling.com.
Plus uncut, unedited interviews with wrestling superstars, the web's most complete wrestling news board, and the Wrestling Observer Extra with Dave Meltzer. It's all at
www.liveaudiowrestling.com.
Check it out today.
Hi, I'm Michelle Williams. Remember when every story you heard ended with happily ever after? But now you're a teen. You hear about other things like drugs, sex, even violence. If you sometimes need help making the right choices, I know who you can talk to. The Boys Town National Hotline, 1-800-448-3000. For over 10 years, they've been helping teens find solutions to all kinds of problems. 1-800-448-3000. Because this is your life, and story time is just for kids.
Call us toll free. 1-877-EYADA-99.
Please check the number and dial again.
1-877-EYADA-99.
Okay, go to your Real or Windows player and click on the anti-drug banner when it appears to find out how you can get help saying no to drugs. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. And we have our record-setting emails and full bank of phone calls. Let me go through some of this stuff here. Short list of wrestlers and their possibilities of getting into WCW. Simon Diamond. I don't want to say no, but...
maybe developmental.
Possible. Super Crazy. Possible. I don't think either of those guys are high on the list. But a lot's going to happen in the next 6 to 8 weeks as they get ready for this. If their spots open, they can get Super Crazy anytime they want. American Dragon.
Small.
Yeah, but there's other small guys there. Low Key, I would say not yet. Haas Brothers, I would say not yet. Maybe at some point. Leviathan, I would say no way. Spanky. Spanky. Not right away. I wouldn't think. Van Dam. Possibly, but probably not. Chris Daniels, I would say probably not. Steve Bradley. Wouldn't surprise me about Steve Bradley. Jason Jett, I'd be surprised if they didn't take him. Kid Cash, I would take him for sure. Matthews and York, I don't know. Test, possibility.
Who?
Mikey Whipwreck, Test.
Oh, heading to WCW?
Yeah.
Okay.
Possibility. Mikey Whipwreck, I would say no. Nova, possibly, but I don't think so. I have a friend who thinks that Triple H can't get a 3-star match with The Undertaker. What do you think? I think it'll be better than 3 stars. What do you think?
I think he'll get at least 3.
Yep.
It's gonna be a chore though.
Yeah. This is, don't the big contracts get bought out first, then they can negotiate a new deal with the WF. So in essence, they can probably make the same money if you add the 2 plus actually working on TV and getting merchandising. Some people will be able to get close to the same money, but the guys, Bill Goldberg, nowhere close. I mean, it's not even in the same ballpark. Nash would be nowhere close. Sting would be nowhere close. Page would be nowhere close. I don't know what Booker T's deal is.
Goldberg gets bought out and headlines a bunch of pay-per-views that do really well.
But it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I guess, you know what? If they were to promise him a whole bunch, but even then, Goldberg sitting at home is going to make more than Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Hunter's headlined every pay-per-view almost all year.
Yeah.
So, and the WCW guys probably won't be on pay-per-view for a year anyway. So that first year, plus they're not going to do house shows, so they're only going to make the guys that first year are only going to make their guarantee. No one's going to make above their guarantee the first year.
Mm-hmm.
The subsequent years they may, depending on where they fit into the mix. Again, who knows? Let's see. When Vince asked the fans who he should keep in WCW, and the guys like Sting, Goldberg, Steiner, and Bagwell got huge pops, he thinks this will change his mind and get those guys. they listen.
Hopefully not.
They listen. See, what is this great 2.5-year deal Goldberg has? It's multi-million dollars a year for 2.5 years. It's a lot of money. Like a lot of money. Let's see. Do you think Vince might have to make Goldberg a good offer? They have to know matches between him and The Rock and him and Austin would draw huge money. Absolutely. And there is a great argument for paying Goldberg the big money and have him come. But I don't think they're going to do it. But there's a real viable argument for doing that. But to do that also, you got to bring Goldberg in. He's got to kill everybody. It's got to be the old Bill Goldberg,
There's
not
going
the
to be
new
so
Bill.
many unhappy people if that ends up happening. I mean, the fans will be happy, but...
The fans will get a dream match, and they'll make a lot of money, which is the bottom line, is making a lot of money. But there will be a lot of disgruntled wrestlers on both camps if Goldberg gets preferential treatment. But you know what? Stars always get preferential treatment.
Yeah.
Let's see. Why can't these stars collect their guaranteed money from Time Warner and also work for Vince under new contracts? They just can't. I asked about that. Just cannot be done. What?
I'm sure Kevin Nash asked about that, too.
This is actually a real good one. Real good one, actually. Since Heat is tanking, why not give WCW the primetime slot on MTV? If it was, you know what? That would be so much better to go in there Sunday night, beg MTV for another hour and go 7 to 9 on Sunday night. That's a million times better than what they're going to do.
And look at how that show did when it was an A show.
Right. And you know what?
But then they'd be going up against pay-per-views.
So move it an hour earlier so they don't go up against pay-per-views. That's not hard.
An hour earlier for a 2-hour show?
Yeah, go 6 to 8. Big deal.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's right.
6 to 8 on Sunday. There's no problem with that. And you know what? The fact that they have Heat may, the WWF brand doesn't need Heat. It adds nothing.
Yeah.
It's a throwaway show anyway. That's a great idea. I am writing that one down.
Plus, you got 3 days in a row for tapings.
What? Tape it on Sunday?
Yeah. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday instead of, I guess they'd be doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but then you'd still have the pay-per-view.
No, you can't do it. You can't tape on a Sunday, though. I would rather do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and have the Wednesday for the next Sunday, because first of all, a lot of those guys aren't ready for live TV, and second of all, you can't do it on Sunday because of your pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So, that's a great idea. Anyway, it seems that The Rock making a movie, Michaels slowly working his way into shape, and Undertaker, and maybe one younger, healthier guy with a lot of potential like Val Venus or Brian Christopher should go there. Yeah, the Michaels and The Rock going there is a pretty damn good idea. I would say it's a pretty damn good idea. Michaels especially, because it fits. He doesn't have to work that often. Because to see WCW also a tag team or two besides those people, given the experience of the WCW wrestlers with experience training, should be sent over like Dean Malenko, Perry Saturn, and Al Snow. You know what? Those guys wouldn't be bad to be sent over also. Not so much Perry, but Malenko and Al Snow, because they're kind of lost in WWF, and they actually could work better with some of the WCW guys. That's a good idea, too. Of all the wrestlers, who has the least chance of winding up in WWF?
The least chance?
Yeah, I would say Animal, of all of them.
Animal, Jarrett, Luger.
Luger's second. Or tied for first, maybe. It's from Ben Miller, who goes, how much stock do you really think the WWF will pay to the pops the wrestlers got last night? The difference between a wrestler's pop and their ability to draw money is so obvious and well known that it seems that too much stock should not be put into a one-time pop. You're absolutely right, but I will also tell you that people in wrestling pay more attention to pops than they do dollars. Don't ask me why, because dollars are what makes the business go round and round. But how many times have you seen people in every company pass up money, obvious money, because of that you can get for, like, say, advertising someone to be there or something, because they want that. I mean, you see it on the indies all the time where, you'll pay $750 to bring in some surprise guy to do a run-in in the main event and not advertise him where he can actually sell you some tickets.
Mm-hmm.
It's like people in wrestling. I've seen it with almost everyone in wrestling. I mean, the drunkenness, they get so drunk on the pop. You just can't imagine. Anyway. Do you think it's really that far-fetched for Eric Bischoff, Jerry Jarrett, or a combination of the two to form a startup company and take advantage of the unused talent that this event has created?
TV.
That's the answer. TV. I just talked to Eric Bischoff earlier today, and we were talking about that problem. TV. Nobody wants it. There is more than enough talent to start up a promotion right now with the guys that Vince won't take, with some guys like Jerry Lawler, Van Dam. You know, there are guys that work Japan. If you make a Japanese deal, there's Mexican guys. There is worlds of talent. You can create a great promotion in the ring, but if you can't get it on television, you're just wasting money.
The most everybody can hope for is that this WWF WCW deal starts at least somewhat of a boom, because then there'll be a chance of getting TV. If it doesn't, I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, it will short term. I don't think there's any question. But you know that the guy, when he wrote about the comic book, you know the reality of these interpromotions, and that doesn't mean, you know, if Vince McMahon and everyone studies, you know, what happened in the comic books and what happened in the roller derby and what happened in, you know, Mid-South wrestling and everything like that with Crockett, and figures out how to avoid it, you know, maybe they'll be smarter than everyone else and they will not repeat the mistakes. But, you know, historically, this has always been a short-term thing, and in not all cases, but in many cases when the short-term thing is over, it's been very bad.
Yeah.
I mean, the Jim Crockett Promotions is, you know, and Roller Derby were both dead within a year after the interpromotional thing, you know, ran its course. And not saying that WWF's going to be dead. I'm just saying that that's just history.
Did you hear about Vince's meeting yesterday at Raw?
A little bit, yeah.
I think he mentioned, I don't know if you can put any stock in it because things change, you know, every day, but I mean, the thing he was saying was, we're going to keep this thing separate and we're not going to do any interpromotion. Maybe guys jumping back and forth and maybe something every now and then, but that's not what we're heading for.
Yeah, but they have to be.
Yeah.
We have to be. Let's go to Phil in D.C. Phil, what's going on?
Hey, guys, how you doing?
Hey.
Doing really good.
A couple of quick questions. I was wondering about Goldberg's contract vis-a-vis doing Japan stuff. Because I know they're big marks for him in New Japan. They're always like mentioning him and trying to get him and things like that. And I imagine you can make a lot of money doing dome shows or maybe even like Pride stuff, worked Pride matches. And I was wondering if his contract allows him to do that.
I'm sure it doesn't. And I don't think that the Time Warner executives are going to have any business dealings with like New Japan Pro Wrestling, like, you know, like the wrestling people did. I think that when this thing shuts its door, which is actually what, tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shutting the doors tomorrow?
Or is it
when they
today?
shut those doors. Is it today?
I thought the meeting was today at the power plant.
I think you may be right. But when this thing is over, I think they're going to wash their hands of it, and they're never going to talk to another person in wrestling again.
I thought it was 11 a.m. tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. I read somewhere, either 11 or 10 a.m. tomorrow.
I think Al's right, because I talked to someone in WCW this morning, and he just goes, well, I'm going to the meeting tomorrow, and, you know, we'll see what happens. You know, so I think it is tomorrow.
And another thing is, do you think financially, if he took the buyout, he could make enough money in Japan to make up the money? Like doing just dome show shots?
No, if they were offering him like say 70 cents on the dollar, yes. But from what I gather, they're going to only offer him 30 cents on the dollar, so he can't afford to take the buyout. That's just pissing away too much money. What?
Because if he stays out 3 years, his career's basically over, right? I mean, he's not going to. By the time 3 years from now, nobody will remember his name, remember anything about him.
Oh yeah, they will.
I
Look at
think they'll
Ultimate
remember
Warrior.
his name.
I mean, he can come back and be a phenom and be really big, or he can come back and flop. I don't know. You don't know which will happen. We don't know where the business will be in 3 years. I mean, you just don't know. Everything's a crapshoot.
And the other question I have was about the developmental things that WWF has. Do you think they're going to move guys from the developmental leagues into WCW, and I think they're going to move some of the
yes, that's part of the plan.
To like
that's
Valley?
Part of the plan. Yeah, that's part of the plan.
Have they talked about who they're going to thinking about moving over?
I think that that's premature as far as what they've talked about. I mean, but to me, like Steve Bradley, Scott Vick, I'd say it's better than 50-50 they're going to wind up on that WCW TV show.
How about like Joey Abs?
Good shot.
How about Pete Gas?
Possibly. Actually, I think Pete Gas and Rodney are going to end up there for sure. Don't you think? Yeah.
You know, I watched some of that Memphis stuff, and I actually thought those guys got to the point where they were decent. Like we do the Death Valley Driver 500, we had them at the bottom of the 500, like 497-ish. But like I've seen them in dark matches, and they're competent wrestlers. Although the last time I saw Rodney, which wasn't that many months ago, I think he like missed every single move in his match. Because I saw some stuff.
Wednesday at 10 a.m. by the way.
Okay.
How's right?
Yeah, because I saw stuff in like Memphis. They were like on that rock and roll RPM level of heel tag team. Like that, not great, but.
I remember the rock and roll RPMs. They weren't great, but they didn't miss moves like Rodney.
Okay.
And they didn't have that deer in the headlights that Pete Gas doesn't have much anymore, but still has a little bit of.
Yeah, but Mike Davis would never take those big bumps.
That's true. And do the hot moves. That's true, because they do hot moves. But that's the same as comparing any wrestler nowadays from the old style. The old style guys, nobody from that era, except for like Dynamite Kid, did the moves these guys do. But generally speaking, those guys are more solid performers than the guys now, just because of the nature of everything.
Yeah, and the other thing is, do you think they're going to go the other way? Like, do you think guys like Sean O'Hare and Mark Jindrak, they might send them down to Memphis so Bobby Eaton can show them how to punch, that kind of thing?
I think that would be a great idea. That was not in their plans, but it has been suggested to them, and I think that they may listen. So I think there's a shot at that, yes. But originally, no, that was not the plans. Phil, we got to run to a break, okay?
Okay, great.
Okay, we'll be back right after this.
Winner of 12 George Bush Awards for the most staff members hooked on phonics. This is IATA.com.
Talk radio for the Internet.
Do you smell what The Rock is cooking?
This is Dave Meltzer, host of Wrestling Observer Live here on IATA.com, and coming Sunday, April the 1st at midnight, join my colleague Brian Alvarez and myself as we host a WrestleMania 17 wrap-up show. We'll go in-depth and give you the inside information on what happened at WrestleMania 17, as well as our views and thoughts on the show. We'll, of course, take your emails and phone calls with your opinions and thoughts on the program as well. So join Brian Alvarez and myself, Dave Meltzer, Sunday, April 1st, immediately following the program on pay-per-view as we go above and beyond to dissect and critique WrestleMania 17, headlined by Stone Cold Steve Austin against The Rock for the World Wrestling Federation Championship. And the only place you can listen to it is here on IATA.com, talk radio for the Internet.
And shut your mouth.
You know I would, but I sprained my finger playing video games.
It'll make my ears swell up really big.
My hair might catch on fire. I don't want grass stains on my teeth.
I think I hear my Uncle Ed calling.
Oh, but I just did my nails.
No matter how lame you think your excuses are, they're not as stupid as smoking weed. When someone offers you a joint, it's okay to pass, no matter how you say it.
No, it's not my thing.
Sponsored by ONDCP and the Partnership for a Drug-Free America.
Attention inventors. InvenTech. Have a great idea or invention? Then you need InvenTech, the launchpad for new ideas. InvenTech understands the needs of inventors like you, and only InvenTech offers a free patent classification search. It's the first step you need to take to success. Call 1-800-470-6868. Act now, and with your search report, receive a free video and all the materials necessary to get you on your way. Be first to the marketplace while your idea is still hot. Using state-of-the-art technology and our worldwide experience, InvenTech can turn your idea into reality. Don't let this opportunity slip away. Call InvenTech now and receive your free patent classification search and bonus video. Take that all-important first step toward turning your dream into reality. Call 1-800-470-6868 to receive your free patent classification search from InvenTech, the launchpad for your new ideas. Call 1-800-470-6868.
Call us toll free 1-877-IATA-99. 1-877-IATA-99.
Okay, I just want to remind everyone that Sunday, April the 1st, this coming Sunday, join Brian and myself as we host the WrestleMania 17 wrap-up show. We're going to go in-depth, give you the inside info on what happened at WrestleMania, as well as our views and thoughts on the show, and how it relates to the future of this ever-changing industry. We'll also be taking your emails and your phone calls with your opinions and thoughts of WrestleMania. So join Brian Alvarez and myself, Dave Meltzer, Sunday, April the 1st, midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific Time, immediately following the pay-per-view as you go above and beyond to dissect and critique WrestleMania with Stone Cold and The Rock for the WWF Championship. The only place you can listen to it is here on IATA.com, talk radio for the Internet. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Let me get to a couple of these emails, and we'll get back to the phone calls, full bank of calls. This is from Frank Delaney, who goes, "That was so wrong to fire those guys on national TV. There's a lot of negative energy hitting Vince's way." There is always a lot of negative energy heading Vince's way. That's why Vince McMahon, I tell you one thing, in the middle of that soliloquy that he did last night before Shane interrupted him, and I was thinking, which we talk about all the time, those exact words popped into my head again. If there was not a Vince McMahon in this industry, we would have to create one.
The character?
He's just the most fascinating person. He really is. I mean, it's like, and his ups and downs, it's like someone was going to me, like last night, he finally got it all. And I go, but the beautiful thing about Vince is that just sets up his next downfall. because it's like Vince is the roller coaster man. No matter how much down he is, where you think his back is against the wall and he's done, he's going to come back and he will be bigger than ever. And when he gets bigger than ever, he's going to get so cocky and so full of himself that he's going to walk headlong into a cliff and fall right down again. And that's the story of Vince's life, and it's been, probably since the 70s. There'll be another fall, and he'll come back from it too. And I don't know when it'll come.
Are we considering the XFL to have already fallen?
Yeah. Well, but there's one coming after this one.
Okay.
Actually, this is a weird one because he was like, you're right, because he actually is at his best and his worst right now because the XFL was his public failure because, let's face it, the XFL got 100,000 times more, well, not 100,000, but 100 times more publicity than this sale. Because, to be honest, as far as media coverage of this sale, I was so amazed at how little there really was.
Mm-hmm.
And how bad the coverage was that was there, like the USA Today saying he bought the contracts of Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, and Dusty. And I was reading somewhere, there was some story somewhere that I read this morning where they said that they treated Shane actually bought it under Vince's nose like it was a shoot last night.
Oh, yeah, good.
Yeah, so it's like this, the coverage of wrestling is usually pretty bad anyway. Let's see, Sakuraba, the best Pride fighter ever. Pound for pound, yes. Even though without loss, I would say pound for pound. How does Sid's future look? Bleak. I'm confused why you think that Pride belongs on a pro wrestling show. I will answer this question one last time since we get it. There's two reasons. Number one is that except for WWF, which includes WCW since they're all one company, we probably get more emails on Pride than probably anything else. Certainly more on any independents in the States, more than any Lucha Libre group. So that's one reason. Number two is that we do cover wrestling all over the world, and now I don't think there's any question the second biggest wrestling company in the world is Pride. So I guess that's the answer.
I think some people just have the idea that unless it's fixed, it's not pro wrestling.
But why?
I think that's why you get those emails. Just look at how well the play-by-play that we did this weekend, or you did. I was asleep, but you did this weekend.
Oh yeah. It was a huge
of
success on the website. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like when in the I guess it's like 93-ish. When AAA really hit big. AAA was probably at that point in time, AAA was the hottest promotion in the world. And they came here, in the United States, and they drew really, really well. In fact, they're actually doing that again now. They're starting to draw real well in the States again. But there were a lot of people that were just like, this isn't pro wrestling. And it's like, well, why not? And it was just like, because, It's like, it was...
Because it's not WWE for WCW.
Yeah. There's so many versions of Rings. Rings is another one. A lot of people, and Rings, when Rings was still worked pro wrestling because the style was different. People were like, it's like there was that weird thing, where people thought, well, it's all worked, but it's not pro wrestling. And it's like, well, actually, that's what it is. In fact, it was more like Rings was probably more like the roots. Someone mentioned this. That Rings is closer to the roots of pro wrestling than WWF, if you look historically.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like with WWF, there's no inclination to make it look real anymore. That's long gone. Whereas in the origins of pro wrestling, the number one thing that they tried to do is make it look real because of the mindset they had. If it doesn't look real, nobody will buy it, which turned out to be a faulty mindset. But that was the mindset they went on for, until about 1989, some year like that. Let's see. When I heard Vince talk about Ted Turner, Shane McMahon in WrestleMania, I thought for sure that Shane would win, and Ted would say he had a clause that gave him the power to buy it back, and then Ted would give Shane WCW. Okay.
I think the chances of seeing Ted Turner at WrestleMania are pretty slim.
Was that story Vince told about Dustin Runnels true? Yes.
Yes.
Dustin Runnels suggested to Vince McMahon that he wanted to take the Goldust character to a whole new level and get breast implants, and Vince thought, they hadn't started losing sponsors, but I guess he was smart enough to know that they would at that point. So Vince told him no, and he quit, and he ended up in WCW where they spent $750,000 a year for nothing. Let's go to Jeff in Florida. Jeff, what's going on?
How you guys doing?
Doing really good.
Yeah, you know what? You'd think that when he was in WCW, he would have brought that up to Vince Russo, and Russo would have said, "Go for it."
Yeah, but they wanted to. I don't know about the implants, okay, but they wanted to do that character, and then the WWF sent him this nasty. That's why Dustin was iced, because he had this character that him and Russo came up with, and then WWF got wind of it and sent them a legal letter threatening to sue them because it was too close to Goldust, and then they couldn't come up with anything to do with him after that point.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, Jeff, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I got 2 questions. The first one is, what's the plan for announcers for the WCW? Are they going to use Tony and Scott, or are they going to use like Jonathan Coachman or something?
They have no plans. That's all of these things are just starting to be talked about. I mean, I have heard. I know Scott Hudson is under consideration. I don't know if Tony is or not. And Tony, obviously, that was amazing when Tony was doing that stuff. Talking about. I mean, I know that Hudson got word through people. Somebody sent word to somebody to send it to Hudson that Hudson was safe. So he was kind of relaxed when he was doing that stuff about, my wife and my daughter, I don't know how I'm going to provide for him. He knew that he would. But Tony, he doesn't know. That was weird. There was a lot of weird stuff on that show. Was when Scott said that, I'm going like, oh my God, he knows he's safe because I knew he got the word. And Tony doesn't know he's safe, and he's saying it right in front of Tony, who's got 5 kids and doesn't know if he's going to have a job after tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Do you think there's any chance of bringing in Mark Madden, or no?
Slim. I would say no chance, but there's a lot of bad blood there, so I would say slim.
And my second question is, how do you think WCW is going to survive at like 11 o'clock at night on TNN? I mean,
show.
Saturday night's like the weakest night for TV.
You're absolutely right. It's either going to have to be a tremendous show or it won't survive. Anything less than a tremendous show and people will skip it. So yeah.
All those kids are out partying,
If it's a great show, the audience will find it. But anything less than a great show, I mean, that's a terrible time slot for anything other than a great show.
Yeah, because usually the only thing on it, like the only kind of wrestling that's on at like 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday is like that Women of Wrestling or Urban Wrestling Association.
Yeah, and they didn't last, did they?
I seem to recall Rock and Hunter, some of those guys on Saturday Night Live, which aired really late at night on Saturday. That did a hell of a rating.
The Rock did, as a one-time special.
It was a one-time special, but it got a hell of a rating on a Saturday night.
Yeah, this first WCW show on Saturday night will do a big rating. It's just like the XFL did. I have no doubt. Sustaining the rating, that's another story. I mean, again, if it's a great show, it will sustain it because wrestling fans will go out of their way to watch it. But if it's a C show, I mean, seriously, Brian, you're not writing about wrestling. You're just a wrestling fan. And there's a C show on Saturday night, 11 to 1. I mean, if
I don't
you're
even
just
watch
a fan,
Heat.
Yeah, I don't watch Heat either.
I never watched Saturday Night. Jacked, Metal, none of them.
Yeah, so there you go. And I love wrestling, and I don't watch Heat either because it's the one show. It's like that's my limit. I'll watch my 2 hours of Raw, and I'm going to watch my 2 hours of SmackDown, and I'll watch the pay-per-views. That's enough WWF for a lifetime.
But I like watching the EMLL, and I'll go out of my way to get it. I don't even have a dish. I have someone else tape it for me and bring it over. So if a fan wants to watch a show, they'll watch it.
Yeah.
And if they don't, they won't.
Yeah. But the onus, as far as drawing ratings, though, the onus is that they have no choice but to have a good show, which is good because I think they may pull it off.
Are the WCW writers going to come over to WWF, or are they just going to be laid off?
WCW writers, as far as Ferrara, I don't like his chances. As far as Banks, I don't like his chances. Taylor and Ace, maybe.
Russo's probably got no chance.
Russo's got no chance.
He's going to be working like a video store for the rest of his life.
Russo's going to be the guy. Remember when I was in the New York Times? They wrote an article about me. I was the genius that made wrestling. I wonder what all those people who wrote those articles think now. They probably don't even care. They don't. The one that irked me was, do you remember, Brian, the Entertainment Weekly thing? This was after Russo got dumped, and WCW was really hitting it, really hitting the skids really bad.
Yeah.
And then the reporter had the nerve to say that, they had Vince Russo and everything was going great, but then, those fuddy-duddies, stifled his creativity, and, now the company's just a bunch of old guys again. Oh, God. It's like,
Wonder what the source for that story was.
I don't know. Anything else, Jeff?
That's about it. See you guys later.
Okay, thanks a bunch, Jeff. Let's go to Hector. Hector, how are you?
Hello. Yes. About the MTV thing, I think they're giving them time already because I was seeing Heat, and then at night they replayed it again, and so it's 2 hours. So
Yeah, they do a replay of Heat. Yeah, that would be really. You know what? That's absolutely the right thing to do. Is 6 to 8 Sunday
really
night
bad.
on
I watched that for
MTV.
the first
Screw that
time.
TNN late night.
Heat is
You know?
really awful. I couldn't even watch it that hour. And then another thing about giving WCW credibility, I think it would be a good idea to have the first interpromotional angle around the time of Survivor Series or Armageddon, and have a unification bout where WCW takes the WWF title and holds it for like 4 months till WrestleMania. And then
Good idea.
Austin
Good
can win
idea.
it back there, or anybody.
I think that's a real good idea.
Then they'd
That
have
would,
to separate them completely again for a while.
yeah.
Yeah.
If there would be something of that would be a good storyline of WCW having the WWF title, and then they're separated, so WWF actually can't have a title. But then the downside is WWF has to do monthly pay-per-views without a world championship, and then the buy rates will drop. So it's like, I think that that's a real gutsy move. I think that they won't do it.
But like they could have it in Armageddon, then the Royal Rumble will sell it by itself, and then something hot for the February pay-per-view, and then WrestleMania, the unification bout.
Yeah, then they can get it back there.
Yeah, and
the problem is
actually
then when they get it back, that's like the Kawada Sasaki. It was really hot, and then as soon as Sasaki won, that thing was just like it hasn't meant a thing since then.
Another thing, do you think Aldo Montoya and the 1-2-3 Kid could end up being the last two in the gimmick battle royal?
No, because they're gonna be wrestling. They'll throw a match with them on WrestleMania. They're not gonna humiliate any of their current guys by putting them in there.
And what do you think of the line? I was not expecting that. I was very surprised how they put WCW over, but the line that really surprised me was the one that Shane said, "We're gonna kick your ass," but he said again, and
like we did in the past.
And I never thought I would hear that on Raw. And were you expecting that?
Well, I think that they've
Nothing wrong with
acknowledged.
saying it now, though.
Yeah, they own the company. The other thing is, they have acknowledged in their history of wrestling that period happened because Vince was on trial. So that
on trial for 4
years. Man, that trial dragged out.
Yeah, it sure did. It dragged out 4 years, but that is their version of history. So since they've already acknowledged that period actually existed, they might as well use it as a storyline.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for taking the call.
Okay. I'm gonna hit a few emails before we hit the break. This is another one of those questions on that subject we're not supposed to talk about. What do you think of these matches of the next Pride? Vitor Belfort versus Dan Henderson. That's a good match. I don't like Dan Henderson's chances in that one, though. Although he's a gutsy guy. I don't know. That's a good match. Vanderlei Silva against Gilbert Ibel. That's the match everybody wants to see. It'd be a super match. Mark Coleman against Heath Herring. I've heard a lot about people discussing that one. That's a really good match, too. Any ideas of what matches Pride wants to do? I've heard about them wanting Mark Coleman and Heath Herring, as a matter of fact. There's no box office in it, though. That's the problem. But it's a guy who Mark Coleman could have some problems with. It says, Ric Flair should be Linda's new boyfriend, and Booker T should escort Shane to the ring at WrestleMania.
We keep hearing about that Ric Flair, Linda McMahon thing.
Yeah. Let's see. Did you notice Tony Schiavone desperately trying to call matches last night? I guess he's trying to keep his job. He's not very good as an announcer. I think they should get rid of him if they haven't decided to already. With WrestleMania,
can you imagine the debates that Ric Flair and Vince McMahon would have?
How about Ric Flair and Kurt Angle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Vince McMahon knows the psychology of his fans better than you do. Why turn the WCW babyface, thus making the WWF its fans heels? Because the main fan base is the teenage male who wants to see themselves as the rebels. The same way the NWO started getting cheered over WCW because the teenage male fans want to be identified with the rebels. And the WCW fan will be seen more as a traditional fan. No, by that standard, the WCWs would be the rebels. I think you're getting mixed up. By the way, did you notice the WWF show didn't have one clean finish, and the champs were completely devalued when Test and Chris Jericho both lost non-title matches filled with run-ins? Yeah, I noticed that. I didn't like those non-titles. I thought that especially, not so much Test because the European title's a joke, but I thought that they really devalued the Intercontinental when Jericho gets beat by Big Show, and it's not even an angle to set up, Jericho and Big Show.
Yeah.
WCW featured all clean wins. Could it be coincidence? Well, it's different writers.
Plus, it was the last show.
Why do a? Yeah, exactly. I mean, WCW should. Yeah. Why? WCW could it be coincidence? Or are they trying to portray WCW as the wrestling group and WF as the sports entertainment group? They're trying to portray them both as the same. That's the idea. But the WCW, they're not in control of WCW yet anyway.
In fact, one of the first words I heard on that Nitro show last night was sports entertainment.
Yep. Over and over.
Yeah, right off the bat.
Yeah. Will the WF bring back the NWO, Hogan, Hall, and Nash? Unlikely. Nash doesn't want to come back right now. What do you think of Vince's comments on Jarrett, Luger, Bagwell, and Dustin? Very interesting. Let's see. I don't think most people know.
We never found out who beat up the Magnificent Seven.
Oh, I got about 3 emails on that one on the way.
I just remembered that.
Yeah, we never did. Yeah. They should have brought, anyway. Don't know if you remember a channel in New York City that had wrestling every day. It was Channel 68 during the 80s. It had 2 days of Texas, 2 days of NWA, and 1 day of UWF. It was changed into the Home Shopping Network. Yeah, a lot of stations around 85, 86 when syndicated wrestling of regional promotions was a real big deal. A lot of stations, would do like a wrestling block, like 5 nights a week for 1 hour, and that was one of them. New York had it, yeah. Let's see. I'm writing to you on the subject. We want you to settle a bet. I say that the Magnificent Morocco was a decent worker. My friend says he was the 80s version of Lex Luger. We've got a 12-pack riding on it. Okay. At the end of his career...
Split that 12-pack.
Yep, that's your answer. Split it. Because at the end of his career, he was like Lex Luger, but during his prime, he was far better than a decent worker. In his prime, he was one of the best workers in the entire business. The guy was really, really good until, he just got old and huge. When he was in WWF, he must have been 275 pounds with those shoulders and everything. Couldn't move at all. But that's what they wanted. They wanted guys, big enough to stand next to Hogan. But, Don Morocco from Florida and San Francisco and, those areas, excellent worker. We are going to hit a break right now. We're going to come back with more phone calls right after this.
The leader in broadband talk. This is IATA.com.
Hi, I'm Johnny Bowden from IATA.com with the Health Minute. The high-carbohydrate diet is the biggest uncontrolled experiment in human history. Why? 11 servings of grains and bread? No wonder Americans are as big as Chevrolets. Listen, let me tell you about the diet we were meant to eat. I call it our factory-specified diet. Every species has one. Squirrels have one. It's called nuts. It's what they run best on. And humans have a factory-specified diet also. It's what our digestive systems run best on. And that hasn't changed in 2.5 million years. We run best on the same stuff our caveman ancestors thrived on.